All right, I started the recording tonight. Let's get started a little bit early. Thank you all for joining tonight. Always good to have Monday Night Football halftime with my fellow officials around the state. I was joking the other day about back when I was a kid, you stayed up, your parents let you stay up just long enough to get through the halftime so that you could see all the other results from around the around the country. Now you can see all those games all the time. So appreciate you guys being with us on Monday Night Football. Our guest tonight is John Sullivan. John is the assistant commissioner for CHASA, and he is focused, one of his jobs is focusing on football, which I'm sure is a handful. John, thank you for joining us tonight. We're blessed, and one of the things I wanted to point out to the folks online tonight is you actually were a football coach for 7 years or so, maybe even more.
23. Yeah.
You were 23 years football coach?
Head coach for 7. Yeah.
At Vista Peak, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helps us as officials to listen to you and hear your experiences off the field and on the field back in the day. You know what we're up against and our membership numbers. And so for everybody online here, I've asked Matt Miller, the current CFOA president, to kind of moderate this conversation. I got John Conklin as well on, our president-elect. And I think I want to use this as an opportunity to throw in some questions to John Sullivan, but also we've got a structure here we'll try to stay to. If you do have a question, put it in that the chat communication, and maybe we'll have time to throw it out to Mr. Sullivan. So with that, Matt, go ahead and jump in.
Thanks everybody for joining tonight. John, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What is CHASA's role involvement with CFOA?
Yeah, I think personally for me, I think CFOA is one of the branches of the different folks that I guess we would call stakeholders, no different than schools, ADs, coaches, and also communities. Specific for me with the different stakeholders, including CFOA, is primarily I would like to be in a supporting position. I think part of my job is to make life a little bit easier for whoever I work with, whether that be schools or officials. And sometimes making life easier is just being able to understand where a different perspective is coming from. I think I have been lucky enough to work in schools. I was a teacher, a coach, and an AD for a while. I do understand that, never officiated, but I'll tell you what, having changed roles and seeing and been in some CFOA meetings, it is pretty amazing to me. And I wish the coaches and ADs around the state knew how much officials cared about getting things right as well. And, one thing I like to do is communicate that out as well.
That's good stuff. Does CHASA get a lot of regular officials, and what is done with those?
Yeah, it's dependent a little bit more on sport. I haven't gotten one this year for football. I think I can't remember if we hit it or not. That those are basically useless in my mind. I shouldn't say that. There are a few coaches in some of the other sports that I do that will rate your official in such a way it doesn't occur only after an ejection or a loss or a bad call. They do it every single game, and I tend to read those. If it just comes after one game, it's useless. Last year we had one game, or we had almost an entire community write one, and it's pointless. We've had internal conversations in our office about getting rid of that because I don't know what it really does. If an athletic director or coach has an issue, that's different. It doesn't need to be a rate my official. It can be, it can target whatever that specific issue is, and that makes a lot more sense to me than the rate my officials that's currently available.
So John, is that something that's done for all sports, and so it may have more application somewhere than others?
It might. Again, Kirk, it's all dependent on, I guess, frequency. I get more for baseball and softball than I do for anything else. I get 0 for wrestling and not much for football. But again, if it just comes randomly, and it's just a way for somebody to complain, it's useless. If there's something productive in there, then that might be something, we reach out to somebody about, but I have yet to get one of those.
Is it, would you say most of your rate your officials, and maybe some of the folks online tonight don't even realize that that's available? Are most of those that use that, whether it's football or any other sport, are they mostly fans' parents, or because
Right.
I assume ADs and coaches probably know your phone number or
Right.
email address, so
Yeah.
they can do it another way?
We'll get some assistant coaches once in a while do it, but usually if it's a head coach or an AD, they reach out directly to me. And yeah, they just want to get something off of their chest. So
with that said, what does Chasta do with the game reports? And do you ever overturn officials? And if so, for what?
Yeah. So let me start with the first part, because it can be somewhat of an in-depth question. So the game reports come in. Obviously, there's a couple different components that I see to that I will be very specific with in there. The first thing is any sort of ejection. So when an ejection comes in on the game report, what I do is I contact the school, usually within 12 hours of getting it. If it's a kid, the kid is ejected for one game, but we have a form letter that goes out. If it's a coach, then the coach is they miss 10% of their season the first time they get ejected, and 20% the second time, and then they have to come in and meet with Mr. Kruger and myself. With those, what I do is I will send this form letter, and then I'll cut and paste what was written in the game report, so the athletic director, if they weren't at the game, can see specifically what the officials said for that situation. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, so that's a complete cut and paste. So I track all of those. If there's situations where ejections are, I guess, there's patterns, then we'll reach out and say, try and request for schools to start putting something in place. They may need to have some professional education with their coaches if there are players that are just nonstop with certain behaviors. So that's what we do specifically with the ejections. When the coaches go on probation, they're on probation for a year. So if they get another ejection, it doesn't even have to be this year. It can be within one calendar year. Then they're on the second tier of that situation. So this is my third year, so I keep track of all that stuff and take a look at that. Other items with the game reports, I think I don't look so much at the flow of the game. I look for some nuanced situations. If there's some issues, I look for situations where maybe I might have to reach out to a school or an athletic director, whether that be coach behavior or fan behavior. I appreciate, in a game report, if there's a way that a school can do better. If there's a situation where we had just talked about the officials being escorted back through the fans, that's not a real good situation. And sometimes it's just something the athletic director doesn't think about. So if we have a way to fix that and make life better, make the game better, safer for everybody, I would definitely report that out. I would also say I think I have a kind of a philosophy when I was a head coach and then as an athletic director. I don't like surprises. If there's a situation that happened in a game and it's not in the game report, and then it comes to me, I would be like, why was this not talked about? And same thing when I was in schools, if a coach got ejected and I didn't hear about it first from the coach, I took issue with that. Again, it's a way for us, for you all to communicate to me, and maybe a way that I can make things better for you, and vice versa. If there's some situations where there's miscommunications going on, I might reach out to a crew chief and kind of ask, well, what happened in this? Is there anything that I can help with along those lines? So that's basically the game reports. I don't look so much at the score. I don't look at the total number of penalties or things like that. It's more of the major happenings. Second part of your question, Matt, I think was, do we overturn officials, and if so, what for? We don't. I will say the only time that we have overturned an official is a request to look at film where a melee occurred, and there was a bunch of kids fighting, couldn't get numbers. If there was a situation, though, where a wrong number was reported, usually the coach will tell us right away. That might be something that we would overturn. But in terms of a judgment call or something like that, that's not a place that I would be willing to go. We do get requests to look at film. I'll look at film, no problem. But also, I think the coaches and ADs have a pretty good understanding right now of what our appeals process is. There isn't one. And they're aware of that, and they do get frustrated with that. But I give them voice, and if there's something that they want me to take a look at, I'll take a look at it. I also tell them that if it's a call, I am in, by way no means an expert on the rule book. That's not my role, and that's not something that I would take a look at.
So with that all being said, and the importance of the descriptions and the specific of the game report, how timely do you like to see ejection reports come in?
I struggle when I get an ejection a week later, to be honest with you. So here's the CHASA protocol for an ejection. If I don't send something to the school, the AD is still supposed to hold the kid or the coach accountable. Okay. Where it gets, I don't know. We have a lot of new ADs. I think we had about a 25 or 30% turnover from last year to this year. And those new ADs, they're drinking out of a fire hose this time of year. They don't know. So it is nice to get those, by Monday night, Tuesday at the latest, that they can have the information that the ejection occurred and what the protocols are for holding the kids out or the coaches out before that next game. So we do have a little bit of grace period before, a Thursday game or something like that. But.
Understood.
Hey, Matt, before we leave those game reports, we've got a lot of officials online here that are probably not crew chiefs and are not responsible for filling out that game report. I think I hear it over and over again, and I know George is barking about this routinely. The importance of specific and accurate presentation of what occurred, and I think we get in trouble if there is some variation of that. And if you can imagine this game of phone that we do, where the official has a foul that's an unsportsmanlike, and something happened, and it doesn't get recorded right away, and then you get into the locker room and you've forgotten all of the details of it, and next thing you know, then the crew chief has to write it down, document it in a game report. I think we can run the chance of not having a good description of what happened by the time it gets to Mr. Sullivan's desk. I think for this group listening, it's absolutely critical either to write that down immediately, or if you guys have radios or whatever it is, to be so specific in exactly why you threw that unsportsmanlike flag, or what you saw, what number you saw do what he did. because we lose so much credibility if that variation, even though it may not have been assumed that it was going to be looked at to the detail, Mr. Sullivan needs it specific and no embellishment of actions.
And on top of that, even if it's not a foul, say we have an issue with the coach and there's just an issue, nothing, no flags were thrown, anything happened. Those situations are good to have in a game report just in case they call and have a problem. We can just go to the game report and look at it and go, oh, well, the officials addressed it here, and this is what they said, and it kind of ends the conversation.
And I would add to that, Matt. It's no different, I think, than documenting something at your regular job. What it would allow me to do, especially when there's specifics involved. Let's just say we have Team X. They're in one crew's opinion berating the wing for a game. Okay, if that gets written down and then it's happening next week, and these are things that I look for. So when I do look through the game reports, as I mentioned before, I'm looking for patterns and stuff. So it's not just one crew. That's an easy conversation for me to have with the AD. Like, hey man, you gotta get grasp on your coaches, especially assistant coaches. And I know those are some of the hardest ones to rein in. But when there's documentation, that's easy, especially, it might not happen after 1 week, but again, if it's happening multiple times, it makes my job a lot easier for sure.
John,
So
I'm sorry, John, why is it that, why does Chasso want the officials to come together and talk on the field if there's going to be an ejection of a player?
Yeah, I think that's super important. I think it's got to be something that a series of protocols have been followed, ensuring that if there were multiple eyes on a situation, that everybody saw the same thing. Without a doubt, there's situations kids got to get the boot and coaches got to get the boot, but we want to make sure that we're getting it right. And I think we can't have situations where we think somebody did something. It's got to be sure. Again, those are situations that I spend, I would say, probably 80% of my time on. So if there's a crew that has come together, has followed the protocols, and even if it's only one person that saw what happened, that's fine. But if there's multiple people that saw it, that's great. I think if there's a disagreement with kind of what was seen, I think you have to err on the side of caution with that, at least from my perspective.
Sorry, I got one more in there, Matt, before we leave this game report. John, I tend to see some game reports that mention, hey, officials of the next game, be prepared for this. This player is unruly. This coach is out of control, or things like that. Can you help us maybe do a little better job there?
I would get away from that. And I don't think, again, in my opinion, that should be something that should be shared. I don't think people should go into a game with any sort of bias. My first couple of years before I got into teaching, I was a substitute teacher, and sometimes people would say, well, Kirk and Matt, you got to watch out for them. So what does that put in my mind as soon as Matt starts talking, whether he's being a good kid or a bad kid? Right away, I'm thinking Matt's the problem, and Matt, you probably were a problem, but I shouldn't be going into a situation with any sort of bias.
I agree 100%. So just to reiterate on the game reports, it's a crew report, even though the crew chief is in charge of writing it and submitting it. Everybody has say in what goes in there. And so at the end of a game, after you have all the details, that's when you talk to, as a crew, your post-game duties, go through things. If the sideline was problems, do those things. And so we get those good reports. The reports we've been getting are pretty good. We could do better. Anyway, we'll move on from that. So what are these medical emergency briefings in the pregame?
Yeah. Hopefully they're not happening very often. We're waiting for a report from our SMAC committee, which is our sports medicine committee, to send out to all the schools and athletic trainers. At a couple of sites, there were situations where officials were being pulled from the field to go to a meeting regarding medical emergencies. In reality, that's not something that our officials need to be worried about. That's something our game administration should be overseeing. So that communication will at some point, hopefully in the very near future, be going out to schools and athletic trainers. Ideally, what would happen is if either at the very beginning when a game administrator meets you or escorts you onto the field, or at some point they hopefully will go over anything that you would need in terms of your actions, which really shouldn't be anything. They should just be saying, hey, if something were to happen, the game needs to be stopped. This is what we're going to do. We'll bring the ambulance from here. You guys take care of what you need to on your end. So it shouldn't be something that you all need to be worried about. And again, if that's a situation where you are being pulled from your duties right before a game, again, that shouldn't be happening. That'd be something I'd want to know about so I could reach out to the schools.
That is report worthy. What can we do to do better?
I think just continued communication. I guess the biggest complaint I get from coaches sometimes is just no one's talking to me. And again, I understand that perspective. Could be talking, and you're trying to also work. So I get that a little bit. I think just the continued communication amongst yourselves during games, like we had talked about with ejections and things like that. I've appreciated, as we mentioned before, the game reports this year, I think, have been really good, especially compared to last year, and continue to improve. So the more you can communicate to me, the more I guess I could be helpful in your end as well. And I will, continue to work with Matt and CFOA and see what we can do from our office to make the game day experience just as good for you all. But again, if there's problems at a place, we can't help out if we don't know about them. So just continue to communicate.
Hey, Matt, let me throw in a question here. And maybe you had this one earlier when we were prepping for this, but let's say, John, we show up at a football game and the opposing coach says, hey, I know number 72 was ejected last week and he's on the field. Mm-hmm. Who's in charge of the ejections?
Yeah.
How would you want us to handle that?
Yeah, I don't think that would be anything that you would need to deal with. That's something that a school can report to me. And it's really not a whole lot different than grade checks. The grade checks are a responsibility of the school. The schools police that. We are what we would call a self-policing agency. The entire CHSA football staff includes myself and my assistant Sandra. So we don't check the grades for all kids. We don't check that any kids are playing after they get ejected. That is the responsibility of the athletic director. We communicate that to them at the beginning of the year at our AD meetings, and they understand that if a kid plays, that they're putting their team in jeopardy in terms of forfeits. So I don't see that very often, to be honest with you. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Once in a while, we will get things reported. Sometimes a parent will report something in, say this kid got kicked out of the game, and they didn't get kicked out of the game. If a kid did get kicked out of the game, the protocol we would do is we would call the school up immediately and say, can you please confirm or deny that this kid played in the game? Then it's on them to essentially self-report.
Good stuff. We have any questions in the chat, Kirk?
I haven't been monitoring them real close. Yeah, there's some stuff about the emergency stuff. I think that'll probably start settling down here.
So what the
oh, yeah,
craziest
go ahead.
what is the craziest part about your job?
Parents, not even close. It's lunacy that the phone calls I get wanting, their kids are losing scholarships over a call or no call, or a coach calling the wrong plays or not playing them. It's unbelievable to me. I think if my dad had called the state association when I was playing, I would be embarrassed as heck, but it's amazing how often that occurs right now. It's just crazy. People feel like they're entitled to just reach out with things like that, and they don't want their kids to struggle. I guess I don't know, but I guess they don't see the value in that. But I do. So I don't. It would definitely be parents, and I got a million parent stories. I should start writing a book with them.
Yeah. What's on the other end of that? What's the best part?
The people. I have truly appreciated the people. I think when I was in Aurora Public Schools, I was somewhat in a silo, and didn't really get to see enough of the rest of the state, and having to be able to go to 6-man games and 8-man games, and seeing the people, and just meeting again all of our stakeholders, officials, and even coaches and the kids. It's been fantastic just to kind of see what is out there, and also the role that athletics plays in their lives, and how important it is. And you don't see too many people getting excited for English class later on in the week, but you get 2,500 people who show up for a football game for sure, and everybody gets excited about it. So
We appreciate everything you do for us.
well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I know you got a tough job, John. There's a lot going on, and we hope we're doing a service for you guys, and can continue to get better. We always talk about how we're not there, and if we think we've got it figured out, we should probably hang it up, because there's too much more going on. Oh, it looks like
Well,
actually,
you.
you bet, Jim. I'm gonna close this out. I think I want to make sure to honor. I like to wrap this up fairly short tonight. So, John Sullivan, thank you for all you do. Matt Miller, appreciate you jumping on tonight and working with John Sullivan. All have a great rest of the season. We'll be back next week. Watch some film, see who I can grab for a talk with. So, Mr.
Thank
Sullivan,
you all.
awesome.
Thank you all for what you do, and I truly meant what I said before. I don't think coaches and ads really understand how much you all care, and want to get everything right. So thank you.
Very good.
Thanks,
Thank you
Kurt.
all. Have a good night.
Good night.